Good. All right. I'm Professor Epley. I'm going to be introducing Charles Harper Webb, our featured poet today. I do want to thank the Long Beach City College Foundation for the funds that enables us to bring great poets like Charles Harper Webb. We've had David Hernandez last spring, and we'll continue to bring in, we hope, great featured poets. I also want to ask you to silence your phones, make sure that they're not going to be going off during the reading. I would appreciate that. So Charles Harper Webb earned a BA in English from Rice University and an MA in English from the University of Washington and an MFA in professional writing, as well as a PhD in counseling psychology from USC. If that's not enough, he's also a former rock star in a former rock band. If you want to ask him about that later, maybe you can. He is the author of 12 collections of poetry, 2 of the most recent being Brain Camp and What Things Are Made Of, both by Pittsburgh poets and poetry. He is the author of a recent collection of essays on poetics called A Million MFAs Are Not Enough, and the editor of Stand-Up Poetry and Expanded Anthology. And I've used that in my classes before. It's a great collection that I think really promotes the style of Southern California poetry and also stand-up poetry in the nation, which is this accessible, vernacular, high energy, high octane poetry that's not afraid of humor and anger and all the different passions that we have. Charles's poems have appeared in Poetry and the Paris Review, among many other well-known journals and magazines. The list would be long. I'd be here for hours, and we wouldn't have time for him to actually read. If you look at any of his books, you'll see just he's constantly sending things out, and he's getting so many things published out there, and then you find them in his books a second time. His work has also been anthologized in the Best American Poetry, the Pushcart Prize, and the Poets of the New Century. His honors include a Guggenheim Fellowship, which I was a student when he received this, which also meant that he couldn't teach the class while I was teaching it, so great job, but I felt a little left out during that time. So I only got to have Webb 1 semester while I was getting my MFA, but he did win the Guggenheim Fellowship, which is a huge award. The Whiting Award, the Felix Pollock Prize for his publication Liver, and both the Kate Tufts Discovery Award and the Morse Poetry Prize for his publication Reading the Water. I've been a big fan of Charles's work for a long time. I mean, I was his former student. I used to carry this around one whole semester, I think 1999. And I love this little chapbook. I didn't even know he's an award-winning poet. He had already, I think, won the Morse Prize by this point and published, another full-length book. But this is all I knew of Webb. And I really loved this because I just found a friend in voice. I found a friend in accessibility. This was published by Pearl Magazine, and a lot of the poems that were republished in this chapbook were actually from the Wormwood Review, which was another journal that I just found out right before the poor guy died. And I felt like I found this hidden gem, and it was a hidden gem. It's this amazing small journal that published some of the great poets that we have today: Billy Collins, Ron Curci, Webb, Laughlin. Charles Bukowski was first published there. And it's interesting to see Billy Collins, someone who's this well-known, accessible poet that's been kind of the poetry darling, and Charles Bukowski, the notorious grump and voice of the bottom of culture together. But here they were in this Wormwood Review, and the tradition of that magazine lived on here. And I just loved these poems, and I just read these, and then I found out, of course, I took his class and I learned more about, these are a little bit more risque, I think, than some of the things you might find in a full collection of his poetry now, but they really spoke to me then, and they speak to me now. And so what I really like about his work is when I enter one of his poems, I enter a world of pop culture, which is familiar to me, humor, intellect, where small incidents of everyday life get, illuminated in extraordinary ways. I like his wide range of emotions. He reminds us that the human condition is complex, that it's okay to be silly or joyful or angry in a poem. I like that his poems are accessible and predominantly fun. It's okay to take pleasure from poetry, and I think that's great when, we are constantly bombarded with death and misery, and that's okay too. We need to deal with, those, mournful things, but we also shouldn't forget about poetry should be pleasurable. Poetry should be fun. And that, I think, is great. He's wonderfully imaginative, and he has one of the most unique voices, I think, in contemporary poetry. Please give me a hand and a warm welcome to Charles Harper Webb.
Well, thanks, and thanks for being here. Here comes the podium. I was going to just sit here, but maybe if they wheel that thing up, we can just start with the podium. See, I got all these books here, and I like to spread them out. Tell you what, I'll just start while they're dealing with it. Jeff, can you supervise this? I'm going to start them with one, and he's going to do it now. Okay, good. Then we'll just wait till it gets here. Stick it right next. There you go. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, this poem is called Amplified Dog. Am I speaking into the mic okay? What's that? Whispers my wife. Through thick layers of sleep, I hear a voice outside, distorted, blaring. I shuffle to the window. Full moon gleams on the blue plastic I spread to funnel off El Nino rains. The night stays still. My feet leak heat, so I'm moving back to bed when the voice starts to sing in Spanish, amplified by what? A blown-out stereo? Should we call the cops? Whispers my wife. Nah, it's nothing, I say. Then the dog speaks. Woof! Distorted as the song. A scene tunes in. A man is swigging Cuervo Gold. His wife, Delilah's gone. His heart hurts, so he pulls out the sound system he's kept since he sang in Los Pochos back when he met her. Maybe she'll hear him from Ramon's 4 blocks away. Maybe she'll throw on her clothes while Ramon, belly swaying in pink boxers, can't hold her back. But no. So the man lets Paco in. Tail-wagging Paco, man's best friend. She loved you more than me, he says, and sets the mic to Paco's height. Call her, boy. Paco sniffs the mic, then barks and hears his voice, woof, louder than it's ever been. How many times has he stood in the yard straining to warn people how much they're messing up? Woof, woof, all day. But they won't hear. They never learn. Hector, as usual, passes out. Hector, his friend, who couldn't smell trouble when Delilah reeked of it. Poor Hector, stupid and sad, just like a man. So Paco calls his warning as the moon tunnels through black night to silver sky. Woof, the world you've made stinks to high heaven. Woof, you're mean to one another. Woof, you let bad people lead you. Woof, you work too much and don't enjoy enough. You waste your time on trivialities. Woof, even sex is work for you. Paco loves the way his voice rattles the house, then flies off in all directions like pigeons when he runs right into them. Well, hi. Thanks for being here. Some of you may end up in my classes. We sure get a lot of people from Long Beach City College. So when I do a reading for students like this, I usually kind of mix up Q&A in the middle of the reading. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, in the middle. I'll answer them. If not, I'll take a break every once in a while and we'll see if anything happens. Let's see, how do I do? Okay, here you go. I do a lot of poems that are inspired by things that happen to me, especially funny things or things that strike me as unusual. And I had occasion, don't ask me why, to call Bank of America one time. And the poor guy who answered the phone had been instructed, I'm sure, by corporate that he had to say this following line: "How can I exceed your expectations?" I mean, a smartass like me could not hear something like that coming from Bank of America without writing a poem about it. So this poem is called "How Can I Exceed Your Expectations?" And it's for Bank of America. Cut Earth's human population 2/3 without being mean. Credit 10 million to my account as compensation for your lamprey fees. Teach me to turn frustration into gasoline. Sell me on the joys of aging and disease. Get my daughter to like whole wheat bread, lima beans, and peas. Deny the IRS all knowledge of me. Turn me 12 for an hour, in 7th grade again, watching in the shower bountiful Ms. Talese. Forge my wife a necklace of the great chain of being. Let me make, at long last, the varsity makeout team. Let us certain you know who, you know what, and no one sees. Teach me the one where David Copperfield turns a jumbo jet into a hot pastrami with pickles and Swiss cheese. Make the trash take itself out. Restore my faith in helpful mysteries. Make physics laws reversible and game scores what I think they should be. Don't let my computer do bad cyber things to me. Grant me 3 wishes. No tricks, satanic majesty. Train my son to step toward the pitcher, keep his weight back, and swing confidently. The next time some teller at your bank chirps, "Next guest, please," give me a nice meal, a strong margarita, and a warm bed in a room with a fireplace for free, plus honest-to-God sadness when I leave. All right, thank you. My favorite fruit is watermelon. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and we had great watermelons there. And the place we got them from is Hempstead. It's called Hempstead, and that'll be in this poem. But apparently Mark Twain thought that just in general southern watermelons were the best. And so I'm going to do something risky in this poem, which is called Watermelon. I'm going to start with a quote from Mark Twain, which means that I have to follow Mark Twain, which is never a comfortable place to be, but I'm still going to do it. And this is what Mark Twain said. It was not a southern watermelon that Eve took. We know because she repented. Watermelon. It's a green pearl. The warm earth grows around a perfect sugar grain. It's the striped egg of the Delectosaurus that escaped extinction by hiding in trees till it was safe to come down and lounge on the ground. It's summer's jack-o'-lantern, every slice a grin. It's a bomb full of shrapnel that boys spit to make moms scold and sisters squeal. Sown in a field, its helmet full of blackened teeth gives rise to armies everyone is glad to see. Ball and chain, to which you're sentenced if you're good. Football, which is its own field goal. Best available translation of spring rain and summer sun heaped high on a Hempstead truck. It's paradise to cool your lips in one after a hot ball game, or on a beach when wet from swimming, a grinning girl in a wisp of blue bikini pleads, "Give me a bite." Deep in the Ozarks, Dad stopped at a roadside stand and bought a whole cold one, sliced lengthwise in quarters, the four of us slurping at our red troughs happily. Watermelon eater as a slur is like calling a man big money maker, fast car driver, bedder of beauties. Africa's pride and greatest gift, the watermelon, inspired humans to evolve, Egypt to civilize, and Dr. Livingston to say, Nile Schmile, find me the source of this. Thank you. Hopefully some of you like watermelon. As Jeff was saying, one thing that if people think of me as a poet, a lot of times they think of humor, and I do use a lot of humor in poems, but not always. What I really tend to do is read poems that have humor in them because they tend to make things a little more lively. And I've certainly been to enough poetry readings that bored me to death that I don't want to ever inflict that on people. However, long introduction to say that this next poem is not a funny poem. It's a poem that unfortunately is true, and it's called Prayer for the Man Who Mugged My Father, 72. May there be an afterlife. May you meet him there, the same age as you. May the meeting take place in a small, locked room. May the bushes where you hid be there again, leaves tipped with razor blades and acid. May the rifle butt you bashed him with be in his hands. May the glass in his car window, which you smashed as he sat stopped at a red light, spike the rifle butt and the concrete on which you'll fall. May the needles the doctors used to close his eye stab your pupils every time you hit the wall and then the floor, which will be often. May my father let you cower for a while, whimpering, "Please don't shoot me, please." May he laugh, unload your gun, toss it away. Then may he take you with bare hands. May those hands which taught his son to throw a curve and drive a nail and hold a frog feel like cannonballs against your jaw. May his arms which powered handstands and made their muscles jump to please me wrap your head and grind your face like stone. May his chest, thick and hairy as a bear's, feel like a bear's, snapping your bones. May his feet, which showed me the flutter kick and carried me miles through the woods, feel like axes, crushing your one claim to manhood as he chops you down. And when you are down and he's done with you, which will be soon, since even one-eyed with brain damage, he's a merciful man. May the door to the room open and let him stride away to the Valhalla he deserves. May you, bleeding, broken, drag yourself upright. May you think the worst is over, you've survived, and may still win. Then may the door open once more and let me in. Thank you. So if people tell you Webb only writes funny poems, he doesn't. I like to write about childhood a lot too. Childhood, which is a great adventure that everybody has when everything is new and amazing. And so there's just like one interesting thing after another, or at least it looks that way when you look back. This is a poem that I want to dedicate to a girl named Sally Woodman, who, Webb Woodman, she sat near me in school pretty much all the way from 1st to 6th grade. Often I was right in front of her. And, the poem will tell you the story of this. And the title is the first line. Where are you now, Sally Woodman, who won the spelling bee with centrifugal, who sang in church choir and brought the most canned goods for starving Africans? You sat behind me from 2nd to 6th grade, let me use your scissors when mine broke, tore pages from your notebook when I left mine home, and when you had 3 Oreos, gave me 2. Where are you, Sally, who hand-picked my Valentine while I pulled yours from the value pack Mom bought for the whole class? Where is your bobbed blonde hair, your eyes morning glory blue, your skin porcelain, Mom called it, that burned pink if I said hi? Where are you, fresh and cheerful as the wholesome maid on our milk boxes? Much better for me than Kimmy Kidson. I saw clearly when she gave back my dog tag and I whiffed 3 times in a playoff game. Better by miles than Candy Sanders, who swished her ponytail and wiggled hips as straight as mine, scattering smiles like pink balloons among the boys. When, shaking worse than with the flu, I gasped, "Will you be my Mayfate partner, please?" Candy chirped, "I'm sorry, Tommy asked first," meaning Tommy Tucker, who couldn't keep a beat if it was welded to his head, let alone sing for his supper, but rode his chopped Ducati in high hoodlum style. Back I dragged to my sad desk, where Sally, blue eyes cast down, must have seen my spilled guts coiling on the ground, must have known I knew she'd be my partner if I asked her to. "Why can't you love what's good for you?" I call down through the cruel years, and hear my voice from way back then call, "Why can't you?" Yeah, you know, Woody Allen said it, the heart wants what it wants, and it's so often it wants what's not good for you. Okay. All right, speaking of what the heart wants, I write quite a few narrative poems. I'm a big fan of novels, stories, and so forth, and I put some of these stories in poems. And here's a story that comes from my childhood. I won't tell you how much of it's true, but enough of it is, I can tell you that. This is called Strangers. "You're wet," Mom said, as I tried to slink by. Dad's eyes caught fire as I told how at White Oak Bayou Park, where last year a boy disappeared, a man in the restroom showed Joey, Ted, and me his thing, and I peed my pants rushing out of there. Dad roared away, returning soon with Joey's dad, R.D., and Ted's, Big Ted, because he was 5'3". "Call the cops," Mom said. "Please, you'll get yourself killed." She gripped Dad's arm. "Dinner's getting cold." "We'll heat it up," Dad said, and we were out the door. The restroom glowed in evening mist as we drove up. "Stay with Ted," Dad told me, then led R.D. inside. A man tore from the gray brick room just before Dad and R.D. dragged another out into the silver chill. "This him?" Dad asked, meaning it better be. "I think," I said. The man, about Dad's size, tugged feebly. Dad's fire eyes flared. My goof-off dad, who made me squeal playing horsebite, who sang "O Holy Night" so sweetly the church ladies cried, growled, "Sure it's him?" "I think," I said again and rubbed my eyes. The caught man whined as Dad and R.D. bulldozed him into the dark. "Guys, I was taking a leak, I swear," lofted back. then sounds like sofa thumping, then sobs and a splash before Dad and R.D. stalked like red-eyed zombies from the thickening fog. We warned him, but he felt like playing Froggy, Dad said, and everyone har-harred. Sounds bad, I know. In those days, though, cops told men to take care of molesters, then looked away. Our dads had shot, bombed, bayoneted Germans, Koreans, Japanese. So, is this poem in praise of vigilante veterans? I'll tell you this, in 6 months, the disappeared boy reappeared. Turned out he'd only run away. Nothing bad happened, nothing he hadn't wanted done. Thanks. I don't know if a scene like that sounds familiar to Californians. I grew up in Texas, and Texas has its own ways, as some of you may know. Sometimes they're good, sometimes not so good. Okay, I do like to get poem ideas from newspaper stories. And this poem was inspired by a newspaper story that I just thought was amazingly poignant and funny and sad at the same time. So I'll read you the poem and see if you can tell which fact in this poem, because it's a list of facts, which one came from the newspaper story. This is called Sheep Tickle Me. Their thick wool, full of dirt, sticks, dung, that makes their legs look toothpick thin. Their bah, its negativity made more absurd by quavering. The way they look in lingerie. A deputy sheriff in Tennessee lost his job for stealing 2 sheep from a farm. He was exposed after he threw one of the sheep, uncooperative, scornful, from the window of the Dive Right Inn. When I quit college to play in a rock band, Dad warned, you'll end up like him, meaning a huckster hunched by the freeway like a shepherd grieving his sheepskins. Like the poor, sheep are always with us. 6,000-year-old statues honor sheep. On the last night of 1 BC, God's Son condescended to a manger ringed by sheep. The Son was called the Lamb of God. Lamb of God, the band, began as Burn the priest. A pastor's congregation is a flock. Foolish followers are sheep. Women wheedle, be a lamb or be an angel. The angels touting Bethlehem may have been sheep, their choir a harmony of bleats. For Easter, Mom cooked leg of lamb, ringed by worshipful spuds, mint jelly hymning in an emerald heap. Heaven's gold streets need constant washing due to sheep. A UC Davis study failed to find lesbian sheep. Since ewes solicit sex by standing still, said a researcher, 2 may ache for one another, but neither they nor we can ever know. Thanks. You could probably tell the last one, that little UC Davis story, is the one that's true. It was in the newspaper, and I thought if that's not a great metaphor for the human condition, two creatures, female sheep, wanting each other, but because the way they show they want each other, they're standing still. So, yeah, I think that applies to a lot of things in life. You got any questions or anything you want to ask me while I'm standing here? I'd be happy to answer. About, I teach creative writing, so if you're writers, you want to ask something about that, that's fine too, Okay, yeah. Am I a movie critic? Not really. I probably could write movie criticism, but because I like movies, but I've never written a criticism of a movie. I've done a lot of literary criticism, but yeah. Uh-huh. I started writing something that was approximating poetry probably my senior year in high school when I discovered that I discovered two things. One, I had a gift for obscene rhyme that would make my friends laugh, and two, girls like to have poems written to them, and that was a good thing. So I had these two things. I could make my friends laugh, and yeah, I mean, that was reinforcing, for sure, although sometimes I didn't have the nerve to show the girl. Uh, yeah. In poetry, fiction, or what? In poetry? Well, yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I think first of all, you really need to familiarize yourself with what's being published and where, because poetry has fragmented so much that there are magazines whose aesthetic or their values are diametrically opposed. I mean, just to give you a simplest example, you might find a magazine which is interested in informal poetry. And if you could send the greatest free verse poem in the universe to them, and they'd reject it. And conversely, you might find a magazine that's completely against formal poetry, and you send a Shakespeare, a sonnet as good as Shakespeare's to them, and they're going to say no. I mean, that's just the most obvious thing. But yeah, be aware of what's being published and where it's being published. And when you find something that a magazine that publishes a lot of stuff you like, that's a good sign. Or if you find a magazine that publishes a lot of the poets that you like, that's a good sign. Jeff mentioned Wormwood Review, and the way I first found out about Wormwood Review, before I was ever in it, I knew of the magazine, and I saw poets who became my models and my friends, Ron Kirchie, Jerry Laughlin, Charles Bukowski, and others I saw in there, and I really liked it. And so I began to think, wow, it'd be great if I could be in there too. And because I liked it, that said that my personal aesthetic was going to be probably sort of similar to theirs. And sure enough, I didn't get in immediately. That's the other thing. You got to keep trying, But once I did get in there, I became one of the regulars. And I can honestly say that was my first real experience of just feeling like I'd kind of arrived as a writer, because I was in with Bukowski and Kirchie and Laughlin and so forth. That was heady stuff for me. I thought, wow, cool. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier how you often, get caught up on poem and poet, and certainly there's a lot of humor in your poems, but of course being familiar with poetry, that is seldom the point, but the point is never really laugh, it's not a punchline, and you showed in your reading now that array that I often like in the collections that I'm like delivered, and do you pay conscious attention to the order in which you present the poems?
Oh, you mean in the book? The way that I arrange them in the book? Yeah, I really do. And it makes me nuts. It's really hard to do. And I end up, I'll tell you, my secret, all of my books follow this. It's like a sonata form. I have 3 movements, and usually the more humorous is in the middle, to kind of break it up. But, and I try to start every section and end every section really strong. And then I try to find some way to link the poems. And sometimes the link might be only in my head. I honestly wonder sometimes whether anybody would see the links that I see. But I just, I have this kind of work ethic in me, and I just can't put them together random. I have to do it in a way that makes some sense to me. But I'm glad that you see that the poems use humor for I don't want to say serious purposes because that sounds ponderous, but purposes that really speak to the human condition. That's what I try to do. Well, I really thank you for that because that's exactly what I try to do. My natural way of looking at the world is partly humorous. I mean, my whole family was like that. We grew up. I grew up. My wife grew up. Her father would ask them to talk about political things and serious subjects. My family tried to make each other laugh at the dinner table. So obviously, I think I have more pleasant memories of my dinner table than I think she has of hers, because her father was a Superior Court judge and was likely to interrogate her. But anyway, it's part of my vision. But I think if I had to characterize my vision, which is risky, but I would say that it's tragic leavened with humor, and humor is used to deal with the tragic. Because, face it, it's tragic. All of us have a tragic arc, unless you're really religious, in which you may think that dying is releasing you to something better. I wish I could feel that. But at any rate, it's a way of dealing with the fact that we have this tragic arc. Okay, this book just fell open here. Sometimes I'll just take this. I was talking about Sally Woodman, and I mentioned the name of a girl named Candy Sanders, and she was real, and she was an important girl in my life, and this is a poem about that. And she probably didn't even know it, but that's what it is when you're in like a 5th grade or something, But anyway, this is called. It had to do with Candy Sanders. How I went coatless to show her I was brave. How when we danced the schottische in P.E., my breathing shook. How I strained to see her panties when she whirled. It was fun to ride my bike, repeating candy, 1 syllable per pump. But little Anthony sobbing, tears on my pillow, Ben E. King's cavernous I who have no one, warned of worse pain to come than broken arms and stitches, adult pain like heart attack, or what pinned Mr. Jones in bed all day, a grown man crying. I had Teddy Laughlin to catch bluegills with, Joey Franz for home run derby, Zach and Jack Bowles to toilet paper houses. I had my sister Carol to tease, her cats to torment, and my mom and dad. Could it all be ray gun blasted into nothing by a girl when I rode past the known world out onto the pitching whitecaps of my teens? When Candy traded dog tags with Trenton Glass, I hummed tragedy, but still stayed on my toes at shortstop, snagged the ball's white blur and threw a strike to Robbie Tate at first. He'd turned gangster, an OD at 17, but at 10 he yelled, "Way to rock, Doc," as I jogged into bat, loose and easy as the yodel on Little Star, the singer begging for a love to share. How would it be to want someone so much I cried? To live in Lonesome Town or Heartbreak Hotel? To hurt like Jack Scott, voice smoky and deep, as he moaned, "Burning bridges behind me," and the pines in my backyard shuddered and sighed. So many boys are little romantics, and they spend all their life, they spend so much energy trying to show they're not, never to show that side. All right, let's see, what else? I'm going to keep track of time here. Oh, okay. Here, I don't know if you guys have student evals, but we have them at Cal State Long Beach. So the students get their chance to say something about the professors, and I read those. Thank goodness they're mostly good, and I really pay attention to them, and I've gotten very good suggestions for the class from them. But this one just struck me as pretty funny. So it said this: Webb could say less, maybe. It's not M-A-Y-B-E, it's M-A-Y space B-E and question mark on the back, at the end of it. So I liked that quite a bit, but I also thought, well, I mean, this is a lecture class. This wasn't a creative writing class that we're talking about. And I do my best to get discussion going, but heck, half the time the students won't say anything. So, what am I supposed to do? So I felt a little self-righteous there. Like, well, if you talk more, I might say less. But anyway, I decided to just have some fun with it. So this poem is called Webb Could Say Less, Maybe. But don't you think Webb's readers care that on a flight to Kona from L.A., a blonde at a Virgin Mary tea hulaed the length of the airplane, nipples straining like 30-06 slugs to pierce the shirt that, when she stretched, bared a belly brown as creme brulee? Should Webb not say that such things make his arms seem swizzle sticks in life's martini? Palm fronds in youth's trade winds, snake tongues tasting spring air, cat whiskers steering him through tight spaces, lobster feelers twitching in love's sea? Should he not say they make him see divinity in bites of bread and the mouth gouge on his red delicious apple shaped like the inverse of Einstein's head? Duct tape your lips, Webb, possibly. Botox your tongue to make it lie like a dead skink. A diving board so bounce-free, not one word springs into people's ears. Be, maybe, the hairdresser who grinds his shears to dust. The batting champ who swings a daffodil, the surgeon who trades his scalpel for a butter stick. Emulate a stripper who won't, a carpenter who saws thin air, a prophet whose best answer is, we'll see. Slouch into rooms real slow, zipped lips proclaiming, hey, if you're looking for that blabbermouth Webb, don't look at me. Hopefully you see that was in good fun. Okay, what else am I going to read here? Now that I've soaked the podium. Oh, I think I mentioned my sister, so I'm going to read this poem for her. As it says in this poem, she asked me one time, why don't you write more poems about me? And so that may have been behind this one, which is called Nada, N-A-D-A. And she was my little sister, of course, so any of you who either were little sisters or boys who had little sisters, you know what I'm talking about, the poor little sister. Nada. What a thing to call my sister. Nada, nothing in Spanish, where D sounds like TH. Nada. 2/3 of the way to Nathalie, where in French the TH sounds like T, as in nativity, birth, the opposite of nothing, though all who are born return to it. Nada, the word contagious, even Mom fizzing laughter as she said, don't call your sister Nada. But my gift was making fun of things. When Nada named her kitten Princess, I called her Rancidia, which stuck. My sister's preference meant nada. Nada that morphed into nadir and nodule, lump that could be cancer and lead to the house of nothing. Nada, of whom I sang, doesn't have a head, no, not one, making Mom exclaim, "Don't say your sister doesn't have a head. She certainly does." Even my father laughed at that. Even he called her Nada once, Nada, negation of Da, though he'd have died for her, died for nothing and become it. Nullity, Christ denied, but Buddha embraced. Zero, nil, the void. Nada, which is heaven in a way. Nada, wondering why I've heard she's not much in my poems. Dear Nada, some say all my poems are about nothing. Worth it, too. May nothing hurt you, Nada. Better than gymnast Nadia with her perfect 10. Decades late, I confess, I was wrong. The night you played Chopin in church, Dad got it right. She's really something. Nada, who helped our parents shrink toward death while I grew fat on life. Nada, your virtues vast as space. You had a head. There was nothing wrong with you. All right, thank you. Well, now, how am I doing time-wise, Jeff? Okay, well, you guys got some questions? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a strange experience having someone else read your poems aloud. I've had actors read them aloud, and I've had, non-actors read them aloud. And usually this sounds a little corny, but I actually just kind of feel honored that they do it. Sometimes they don't read it the way I would have, but that's okay with me. I mean, once you publish something, it's kind of out there for others to do with what they will. Sometimes I've heard things in the poems that I didn't realize were there. I had a poem read by the actor. Let's see. How I can remember his name. Oh God, I can't. Well, I'm blocking on it. But anyway, a pretty well-known actor. Michael Constantine. That's his name. He read a poem of mine, and he had the whole book to pick from. This was at AWP, and I didn't know what he was going to read. And when he read that poem, I suddenly found, I'd say, virtues in it that I didn't know were there. That was good. I've taken to reading that poem more lately because he found something in it that I realized when I heard it. Yeah, that's kind of what I tried to put in it, but I've forgotten. So it's a good experience. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't take anything for granted as far as commonality of values anymore. I mean, I was raised in a home in which my mother was very religious, and my father pretended to be, because he was a really good singer, and he was the soloist in the church choir, and he loved to get up there and sing. So I grew up kind of seeing, I grew up with I guess a reasonably strong education in the Bible, but also, with more than my share of doubts. And I just try honestly to write about what it is like for me to be human, because I think that's all that a poet can do. I mean, and then you have to let the chips fall where they may. I mean, if I get up here, or if I write and try to pretend to be somebody other than who I am, I think it'll fall flat. Walt Whitman had a real good thing to say about that, and he said basically the same thing, that you can't hide who you are in your writing, that it will come out. So I figure I might as well just put it out there, see what happens. Yeah.
Hey, Ursula, I always pay close attention when a poet or a literary critic says that
Boy, you heard that a long time ago, didn't you? Yeah, wow.
In our current political arena of using narratives to, people in the media creating fake narratives,
Yeah.
using narratives to get to the truth of what's going on, how important do you think poetry is now? More poetry, or do you have any observation?
Well, it's similar to what I just said, that I think that in an era in which truth is so hard to come by, in which fake news is all over the place, and it's hard to tell what's fake news, I think that poetry, which doesn't make much money and which it's hard to sell out for, I think that is something that a poet has to offer. And that's what I'm saying, that I just try to write the truth of the world and my psyche as I see it, and I hope that resonates with others, because that's, again, all we can hope, that we have more in common than we don't. And so, yeah, I think that poetry could really, that some poetry really does stand as a bastion of truth in a world in which somebody say, well, yeah, why would he lie? He's not getting paid for it. Why would I get up here and lie to you? I just wouldn't do it. It would fail to embody the art that I've spent a lot of time trying to do. It'd be like saying, why would a batter get up and just purposely strike out? I mean, I could think of reasons, but for the most part, they wouldn't. Yeah, Jeff. Yeah. Yeah, when I talk about truth in my poems, I'm not talking about factual truth. I'm talking about emotional and psychological truth. I mean, yeah, I mean, the old phrase poetic license means that a poet can in effect lie or say anything he wants to in order to make the poem better. But it's the emotional and psychological truth that has to be there. So, the fact that, I mean, the truth of the matter is, okay, that like, nobody's going to quote this, but that Sally Woodman, her real name was Sally Woodson, but I didn't really want to put that, out there. She might see it. I doubt that she would, but she might. So I just changed it a little. That's fictionalizing. Or, maybe something happened to a friend of mine and I said it happened to me, or something like that. That's not important. I mean, not everything that I, in that poem Strangers, about when the fathers beat up this guy they think is a molester, that's not exactly how it happened, but the emotional truth is there. Yeah. I work my butt off rewriting, I'll tell you. Yeats said it in a poem that you may work for hours and hours in order to seem like it was just tossed off. That's me. Yeah. Yeah. I am extremely disciplined. I don't wait for inspiration, because waiting for inspiration is the best way I can think of not to have any. I get my inspiration at the desk, at the computer, wherever it is. And so, yeah, I do write every day. I mean, if I'm going to go, like I'm going to go to Montana for some trout fishing at the end of the semester, I won't be writing then. I mean, I'm not like obsessive about it. I'll take a week off, or I'll do whatever. But if there's no really good reason not to, I write every day. I get to my office at Cal State Long Beach real early because I live in Glendale and I have to come early to beat the traffic, and I write. And at home I get up at about the same time and I write. That's what I do. Butt in chair. Yeah. Oh gosh, practically all of it is. The difficulty, I mean, what that poem to me is really about is about how fallible ideas of right and wrong and law and everything are. And, you know, so often the law fails us, but on the other hand, so often the law saves us. And I mean, it's really complicated, and that's why I had the poem end the way I did. That the boy who disappeared, you know, in my head at least, actually ran away with somebody, and may well have been gay or something like that, and he came back and he was fine, and nothing bad happened to him. Well, I mean, it's so complicated. It's really hard to know what's right for anything, or you know, you kind of have to make a decision case by case, according to your own values and according to your own life. So that poem to me is about no easy answers, you know, and you know, it's also about how do you tell young men who have been trained to kill, you know, soldiers, how do you tell them, oh, that didn't count. Now you're back in this world, and so you can't do that anymore. You know, how do you do that? Obviously, it's been difficult. So, yeah.
You spoke a minute ago about discipline in the creative process, and I'm curious if you could talk a bit about what that has been like for you over the longevity of decades that you've been writing, and particularly what advice you could give to writers in that sense, as far as where that drive comes from, where you
Okay.
think it comes from.
Yeah. All right. I'll tell you what I tell my students all the time. If you want to be a writer, one of the first things you have to do is make sure that you are self-reinforcing. Meaning, you know, that's a Skinnerian psychology where you've got to get something out of it. You've got to enjoy it. If you're one of these writers, and there are many, who suffers every time they sit down to write, most of those writers will stop. And they probably should, because why add pain to your life? That's what I think. But so what I do is I enjoy writing, and I make sure that I continue to enjoy writing. If I get sick of one thing, I'll go to something else. But I really like it. It's hard. Sometimes I want to slam my head against the wall. You know, it's really hard, and it's frustrating. I mean, it's not like all fun and games, but overall, you need to find a way to enjoy your writing if you want to do it. So I don't consider it, you know, torture or anything that I want to write every day. I like it. It's good. It's fun. You know, I'd rather go trout fishing. So when I have a chance, I'll do that. There's other things I'd rather do, but by and large, that's not a bad way to spend a few hours in the morning. I always write in the morning because I'm a morning person. That's another thing. If you find out when you're sharpest and try to write during that time. A lot of people are night people, and they write better at night. I can't do anything at night. I get crabby. I can't think right. I mean, I'm at my best in the morning, so that's when I do it. Yeah.
At this stage in your life, do you have to write on demand?
Almost never. I think it would be very hard for me to do and write something good. I mean, I'm enough of a pro that if I had to do it, I could turn out something. If I had to write something, if I were a poet laureate and had to write something on the king's birthday, I could do it, but it would be crap. In my mind, it would probably be. Now, I might get lucky. Something might come out. But yeah, occasional stuff is not really, that's not where I get my best stuff. I get my best ideas kind of out of the blue. Something really strange will happen. Like I said, I read this little article about this researcher who was trying to find lesbian sheep and found out she couldn't tell. You know, and I mean, I wasn't looking for it. I just read it, and there's that article, and I thought, oh. So, yeah, so I made up all kinds of other stuff about sheep. just so I could get to that at the end. Maybe shall I end with one, or is it we about done, or what? I mean, I'm happy to sit here and talk to you guys. This another thing. This stuff is fun for me, so I'm not. I don't know where you have to go, but what should I do, Jeff? Yeah, I'll read some. I will read something. This is another fun one to read, if I can find it. I like to end with stuff that's fun. Okay, here we go. Getting to be a while since the Jackass guys did a movie, but anybody seen any of the Jackass movies? Okay, good, because it helps if you have. I'm a big fan of low culture, and the reason is, first of all, because it entertains me and it makes me laugh, but I can also give you a more highfalutin reason. It's because I really think that it's in low culture that humans really show what they're about. We kind of pretend to be all hoity-toity, but really at bottom, humans are pretty primitive. And I kind of revel in that primitiveness. So this is a poem that combines some of the Jackass movies. I watched all 3 of them. I don't think there were more. The third one was a little hard to watch because that got so sadistic. But the first one I was just howling at the whole time. It was so funny. But anyway, I dedicated this poem to myself, and it's called Jackass the Viewer. Why do I remember Jackass the movie when so much has gushed from the cracked crankcase of my mind? My brain has dumped the words King Lear howled on the heath, but saved the fool promising some car rental guy, "I'll take good care of this baby," then racing straight to Demolition Derby. I can't remember some women I've slept with, or forget Sir Wastebasket Head pedaling his bike through a grocery store, push broom Lance scattering canned goods as he falls. I can't define Bauhaus, but recall the industrial strength moron who paper cut his own tongue, then shot with a beanbag gun, screamed, wriggled, writhed on the floor, and later showed off a black and purple bruise big as a fist. Paying the phone bill slips my mind, but not bungee jump wedgie. Brains hold tight to what they think helps them survive, not Nobel Prize economics, but ass kicked by a girl. Not my anniversary or St. Thomas's thoughts on teleology, but air horns squonking as pro golfers flail. I barely smile watching that French mime, what's his name, but nearly fill my pantaloons when a guy cracks a newspaper in a hardware store, then deflowers the display commode. I've fuzzed the year of William's conquest, but see clearly wee man, 4 foot none, high kicking his own head, then strolling hidden under a red traffic cone as heedless crowds surge by. Why is high culture so hard to grasp today? Why is history so easily displaced? Is my life a waste because I can't recite the periodic table or Boyle's Law or the first bars of Beethoven's Ninth or my password to the Times online archives or how many cups in a gallon or my city councilman if I have one or my state senator or national representative or how to take square roots or who won the Battle of Bull Run or the difference between Lope de Vega and Cabeza de Vaca or exactly why my ex filed on me, but I remember the white guy in Tokyo who snorted hot wasabi until he threw up. His fellow diners seemed incredulous at first, then laughed so hard that one bent down and threw up too. All right, thank you. Well, if you guys want to chat, I'll hang out, but I've got books back there. If anybody wants me to sign them, I'll be happy to do that. But thanks a lot for your attention. You guys were a fun audience.
Thank you. I wanted to once again thank the Long Beach City College Community Foundation for their funds that allows us to have these readings. And again, books are available back here. Charles Harper Webb will sign them for you if you'd like. And our reading is over at this point. Those of you that are students in my class, we are going to return eventually back to the classroom. We'll see how things shake out. But please do stick around, hang out, talk to Charles Harper Webb, get your books signed if you need them. Thank you for coming again.